listening to the Booktrospective Podcast, a podcast for all types of books. And even though we read all types of books across all different types of genres, we want to give a disclaimer. Many of our books and a lot of our content sometimes is intended for mature audiences. And we don't believe in censorship, but we do want our listeners to have the opportunity to decide if our episode or podcast is good for them. So with that, let's get into the episode. Hey, it's Dominique.
And Keely.
And you are listening to Booktrospective. And this week we are covering The Quiet Tenant. I cannot say her. It's a female, right?
Yes.
Her name. It's like Clémence. It's French, right?
Yes.
What's the last name?
Michallon, maybe?
Maybe.
Oui. Apologies if we butchered it.
Yes. So sorry. Before we talk about the book, Keely, how's your week been?
My week has been eventful.
Yeah, she did a thing.
I did a thing. And I got a new shop dog.
She's so precious. You might hear her, but she's fine now because she's like in her little blanket puddle.
She's asleep already.
Oh.
Yeah, she'll probably sleep the whole time, to be quite honest.
She's a doll.
She's a little Maltese Jack Russell mix named Evie. Literally just got her. So she's still been whining and attached to my hip, but she's a sweet puppy. So yeah, that's what's going on in my life.
Yes, she's so cute. What did I do this week? Well, first I bought a shed. But that was not this week, but I don't think we've recorded since I bought the shed. So my shed's coming next week, and it's going to be my office / book nook little area. So there's that. But then also, yesterday was my birthday. And you guys got us to 500 followers on TikTok, and we gave away a free audiobook. So we definitely appreciate that. Yeah, what else did I do? I've just been trying to get my life together. I feel like I still can't get ahead. Like, I have like 4 books I need to read all in this next week. But I'm going to get it done. Okay, so that's it. All right, so the blurb.
The blurb. Aidan Thomas is a hard-working family man and a somewhat beloved figure in a small upstate New York town where he lives. He's the kind of man who always lends a hand and has a good word for everyone. But Aiden has a dark secret he's been keeping from everyone in town and those closest to him. He's a kidnapper and serial killer. Aiden has murdered 8 young women, and there's a 9th he has earmarked for Rachel. He has earmarked for Rachel.
Okay. Sure.
Imprisoned in the backyard shed, fearing for her life. When Aiden's wife dies, he and his 13-year-old daughter, Cecilia, are forced to move. Aiden has no choice but to bring Rachel along, introducing her to Cecilia as a family friend who needs a place to stay. Aiden is betting on Rachel after 5 years of captivity, being too brainwashed and fearful to attempt to escape. But Rachel's a fighter and a survivor and recognizes Cecilia might just be the lifeline she has waited for all these years. As Rachel tests the boundaries of her new living situation, she begins to form a tenuous connection with Cecilia. And when Emily, a local restaurant owner, develops a crush on the handsome widower, she finds herself drawn into Rachel and Cecilia's orbit, coming dangerously close to discovering Aiden's secret. Told through the perspectives of Rachel, Cecilia, and Emily, The Quiet Tenant explores the psychological impact of Aiden's crimes on the women in his life and the bonds between those women that give them the strength to fight back. Both a searing thriller and an astute study of trauma, survival, and the dynamics of power, The Quiet Tenant is an electrifying debut thriller by a major talent.
That was a mouthful.
It was. I struggled just a little bit.
Okay, if you could describe this book in one word, how would you?
It's been a while since I've been at a loss for a word. I would say
I know what I want, but like...
A gamble. I would say gamble.
Okay. I'm gonna say... exasperating. So I was... this book is kind of like... I like parts about this book. There's things I don't like. I'll talk about at the end. But it was like an itch I just couldn't scratch. Like, it was like almost there. I don't know. So, all right. So this book follows a few different people. We don't get the perspective of Aiden, but he's the main male character in this, and he is obviously a serial killer. And then we follow mostly, well, no, I guess it's kind of like equal. So we follow Rachel, which is, her name is really not Rachel, but she's the woman that he didn't kill, but he's kidnapped for 5 years. Emily is a girl who grew up in the town with him. I don't know how much older than, I'm like, maybe like 20 years. Like, he's significantly older than her because she's known him since she was like a kid and he was an adult then. But she is running her family restaurant and like super infatuated with this man. And then Cecilia is his daughter. She's like 13, 14, 13, something like that.
13, yeah.
13. Very troubled. Lots of things going on. So we start the book in the shed, but then because, like the blurb says, Aiden's wife dies, they end up having to move to a different house, not like far away or anything. And Rachel kind of convinces him like to take her along. And so it's a very interesting like perspective of what capture does to the captee. And like what it, I don't really know like what it does to his daughter, but like it's not because she doesn't know that Rachel's kidnapped, but he's just very controlling and like the mind of a serial killer, basically. So that's what this book is about. I'm sure there's triggers.
There are. The only ones that I have that currently is rape, kidnapping, strangulation. There is death of a loved one, but that's not like...
Yeah, cancer.
It's off-page death. So...
Yeah, so I mean, if you have any like anything like kidnapping, domestic abuse, essay, violence, anything like that, those would be the triggers for this. So we are going to go ahead and get started. This book jumps around from different POVs and also kind of time a little bit. So yeah, but we're going to start out. We actually start out with Rachel. We don't learn her name right away, but unless you read the blurb, which I don't, so there's that. Also, I guess I didn't say. So if you have not read this book, I just jumped right past that. If you have not read this book, then this is your notice to pause here and come back later. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get started. So Rachel, and like all of her chapters are like a woman in the shed, a woman, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, the first one's like a woman controlled by a man or something like that. And he's basically telling her, and we don't know yet, but this is Aiden, telling her, like, when to bathe, how to bathe. She's been in this shed for years. He rapes her. And basically, he comes to her one day and is like, you've been here too long. I have to move. And we learn that she's been in this shed for 5 years. We jump over to Emily, and Emily is working at her family restaurant. Her parents are both dead. And it was her father's restaurant, so like now she is running it. And Aidan Thomas is a regular there. He comes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so she's like kind of just waiting for him to come for his regular day. She gets like super excited when he comes in. Even they don't speak, like there's no interaction at all. He just is this guy that comes twice a week, eats, and then leaves. And he like briefly speaks to her, and then when he leaves, she notices that the coaster's gone, and she's like, "That's weird. I thought there was a coaster, but whatever." And we jump back to the woman in the shed, which is Rachel. And she, like, knows a little bit about her situation. So she knows the shed is on an isolated property. He told her her new name was Rachel. We don't learn her actual name till the end of this book. But we will refer to her as Rachel. So I'll just say Rachel. And basically, he's taken her license. He's choked her at different times. He tells her all the time, like, no one's looking for you. No one's going to find you. No one even knows who you are. And she basically placates him, like, to, like, get him to talk. Like, you're right. Like, all these things and, you know, whatever. And he comes in one day, like, he's kind of, like, flustered or upset. And she's like, you know, can you tell me what happened? Maybe I can find a way for you to, like, stay here or help you. And he's like, do you even know who you are? And he tells her, I found you and I keep you alive. And without me, you would be dead. And he just tells her, like, she's dead. And by the she, he means his wife. And she knows that he has a wife. And he tells her that her parents, the dead wife's parents, are selling the house, and basically he has to move. And she's freaking out because Rachel knows, like, okay, he's probably not going to take me, or he doesn't really have a way to take me. And so if he has to move, then I'm going to die now. We jump back over to Emily, and Aiden is back. It's his normal Tuesday or Thursday, whatever day it is. But he seems off today, and she asks him, like, can I get you something different to drink? He doesn't drink. He doesn't, like, have any vices. He's, like, an upstanding citizen as far as she knows. So she makes him a virgin old-fashioned, and she, like, is thinking about how, like, much he's done for this town. Like, he's the guy that gets the cat out of the tree, and, like, just, like, the town hero. Like, he's the Matt Donovan of this world. If you watch Vampire Diaries. And she knows that it's been a month since he lost his wife. And she was introduced to Aiden again as a child. He had fixed the restaurant freezer one night for her dad. He had come in with his wife. And she's basically been infatuated with him ever since then. Because I guess he probably was like, hey, kid, or something like 20 years ago. And ever since then, she's been obsessed with this man.
You know, as kids do.
Yeah, she just didn't, like, grow out of it. But... you know, strange boundaries here. But he comes in and he thanks her for the drink and is like, okay, how much do I owe you? And she's like, no, this one's on the house. And she kind of wants to, like, hit on him, but his wife just died. So she's like, that's probably not appropriate. So she doesn't. And we go back to Rachel. He hasn't shown up like usual. And when he does come in, like, he makes her, like, scrub with bleach. There's no, like, this isn't a she shed. This is not like a fancy shed. There's no bathroom or anything. And we learned that, like, there's been periods of time where he does leave for several days, and he always threatens her to be quiet while he's gone. But basically, Rachel figures out or knows or assumes that whenever he's gone for those periods, it's because he's gone to kill another woman. And I think the last time was, like, around Thanksgiving, and I don't know that we get a time yet, but, like, towards the middle and end of this book, it's Thanksgiving and stuff again. So it's been, like, pretty much a year since he's done that. But this time when he left, like, he also doesn't leave her any food. Like, she just starves and, like, can't really use the bathroom. I think there's, like, a bucket or something. And he basically, like, sometimes he'll tell her, like, well, I can't just walk out here with a meal. Well, I mean, you could. I mean, you could say you're eating your... there's no way that you were spending this much time in the shed, and, like, right. Your wife doesn't know that you're in the shed. And
from what it sounds like, it's not a good condition, a shed in good condition either. So you're just
out there
spending all this time out in this rickety old...
And she's never gone out. Like, as me as the wife, I'm nosy. I'm gonna at least see the inside of this thing.
Right.
I'm not gonna go 5 years without seeing the inside of your shed, especially if my husband starts being weird, and is always... Now, we learned that his wife has cancer, and, like... but she beat it before it. But I don't know, like, I feel like she had some ups in there with the downs. Right. Like, there's not one single time where you were like, what the hell are you doing? Which also, I'm assuming he goes out, like, in the middle of the night, and there's nothing out there. Like, it's just their house.
Right. How are you mowing? Like you can't be mowing.
What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing out there? I'm entirely too nosy for this, so this never would have... he would have killed me because... this never would have flown in my house. Like, I'm like, no. So he comes back in finally, and he pulls out a gun, and she can tell, like, he's super exhausted, but then, like, oh,
somebody must be drilling.
Yeah. So he's, like, seems exhausted, but he also seems, like, happy, and, like, he pulls out these designer sunglasses and gives them to her, and he's like, oh, she no longer needs them. So he obviously killed someone, and don't give me this dead lady's glasses. Right. Like, gross. And he goes, she's still packing, and Rachel knows that he's referring to his daughter, which we will learn is Cecilia. And Rachel's like, you know, when you leave, I could go with you. Nothing has to really change. But he just leaves and locks her in the shed. So we get these, like, little, like, inserts of little snippets from his victim. So this one is number 1. And the lady basically is, like, thinking, like, this is his first kill. And we learned that she was a prostitute. He was an undergrad. And she didn't expect him to do it because he seemed, like, kind of weak. And basically, like, insinuates like they did hook up or have sex, and then after that she was like putting her shirt back on, and that's when he did it, and he choked her to death, which seems to be his MO. We go back to Rachel, and she's thinking of Matt. So Matt was her almost boyfriend. We get more of her backstory towards the end, but she had like an almost boyfriend when she went missing, and he knew how to pick locks really well. And she's like, I wish I would have paid attention and like learned that. That could have helped me. Aiden comes out and brings her food today, and he like grabs her as she's like scarfing out this food because she's starving. He's like, "What's your name?" And she's like, "Rachel," because that's what he wants her to be known as. And she's trying to convince him, and she goes, "You found me, you keep me alive, you're my Lord and Savior." Like, that's what he wants to hear. And so she asks what's his daughter's name, and he's like, "Why do you care?" And he tells her, "You can't start asking questions," and basically is like, look, he's going to take her with them, but he's going to tell his daughter that you're a friend of a friend renting a room. So she's going to be in the house with him and his daughter, which I was like, there was no way long term that this was ever going to work. I don't know why he agreed to this, because if you were smart, which I'm glad you're not, but like that's suspicious, but okay. So he's planning on moving her in the middle of the night, and he's going to like keep her handcuffed the entire time. Like, she's either going to be in her room handcuffed to her bed at night, and then like during the day he ends up handcuffing her to like the radiator or something. And she'll be able to eat with them, but like she can't eat every single meal with them because that would be suspicious. Like, okay. And she just needs to act normal. Like, yeah, I've been kidnapped for 5 years living in a shed, but I don't know what normal
the outside
is.
World is.
Yeah, like I don't even know what day it is. I don't know what's happening. Like, whatever. But Aiden tells her like no one will know about her but him and Cecilia. And Rachel thinks that Cecilia is like a beautiful name, and is like, you never should have told me that. Basically, like, you know, serial killers really shouldn't tell their victims like personal information. We go back to Emily, and Aiden does not show up on Thursday, but then he comes on Friday, and he also like calls her name, which is very weird. And so this makes her entire weekend, like, she's so excited. And she's basically at work on Saturday, and she's like kind of numb to everything. And after that, all of her employees like go out together. She lives with two of her employees. They're all roommates. And one of them, Cora, is talking about this story about a woman going missing in the woods last week. Apparently she went hiking like late in the day, and they found her shoe. And Emily's just thinking about like how her parents tragically died, and like how just anything can happen to anyone at any time. And ever since her dad died, so her mom died before him, two of her coworkers, Eric and like Yawanda, I think, they live with her. And we learned that the missing woman's name is Melissa, and Emily really just can't stop thinking about her. We go back to Rachel, and she's just having like these flashbacks to her childhood, and she's thinking of like warning signs of bad things to come. She thinks back to like her first boyfriend, her first kiss, her like first time having sex, how she didn't want to, but basically like she didn't know how to tell the guy to stop, so it just kind of happened to her. So she's kind of just thinking back on all these things. And she keeps asking Aiden, like, when are we leaving? When are we leaving? And so one night he just like abruptly comes and gets her, and she's like, wait, I want to take like the books and the trinkets and stuff that you've given me. And he kind of snaps at her, and he handcuffs her and is like, don't try anything, like blah, 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 all that stuff. So he drives her, I think she's like blindfolded and like all that. And he drives her, and he takes her to this new house, to her room, and he handcuffs her to the bed. And she's so happy because she hasn't had a bed in 5 years. But then she lays in it, and she starts to have a panic attack because she hasn't laid in a bed in 5 years, and like it doesn't feel right. It's uncomfortable, and she can't really move because she's handcuffed. And so she's like, can I just sleep on the floor? Because that's what she's used to. He tells her he'll be across the hall, and he expects her to be in the exact same position in the morning. And as he's like leaving out of the room, she can hear Cecilia call out for him. We get an insert from number 2, and this is the second woman he's killed. He was engaged at the time of killing her, and he basically came in to like rob the store that this lady works at and ended up killing her. And he tied her up, saying like he's good at knots, and she could tell like this wasn't his first time. So Rachel wakes up because he's waking her up. Like, she actually kind of like slept. She's not used to not being awake like as he's approaching, and it's like 5 o'clock or something in the morning because he wants her to shower before Cecilia gets up. And so he takes her to shower. This is literally the first time she's seen herself in 5 years. She's got gray hair, she's skinny, she has bruises, her hair is a mess. And, like, he's already dressed for the day, and Cecilia's obviously still asleep. So he's basically, like, reminding her, like, your name is Rachel, you're new to town, you heard, like, a friend of a friend who had a room to, like, sublease, so that's why you're here, that's her whole story. And, like, as he's dressing her, all she's thinking about is, like, I could just beat the hell out of him. But she doesn't, because she's, like, super weak, too. And he puts her back in her room as they hear, like, Cecilia's alarm goes off, and so he goes to, like, handle... They also call her Cece. So he goes to his daughter, and then he comes back to get Rachel and, like, okay, it's time for breakfast. So she goes down. Cecilia comes downstairs. This is her first time meeting her, and she tries to act normal. But she has been eating, like, frozen banquet meals, basically. So she's drinking coffee, and she's, like, expected to just sit at this table like this is what she does every day. She literally goes to, like, put jelly on her toast, which, like, he also controls her portions and everything. So now it's just, like, you know, like a normal person. It's on the table. She can, like, reach for it. The jelly is so sweet. Like, it hurts her teeth. And she knows, like, I need to see a dentist. Like, her teeth are probably a wreck. And it's so weird because he's such a normal, like, doting, involved father. Like, are you, like, what's going on at school? Like, all that normal parent stuff. But his daughter, like, eats breakfast. She goes out to the bathroom. And while she's in the bathroom, he takes Rachel back upstairs and, like, handcuffs her to the radiator, and he shows her his phone and was like, look, I have cameras everywhere. There's cameras in your room, all around the house. And then he says he works close by, and so if he sees anything, he won't be happy. So we learn that he's, like, a lineman, which are the people that work on power lines. So he's basically like, I'm working the sky so I can see you, which I don't believe that, but
right.
Like, not really. And also, like, the blurb says this, but this is in New York. They're, like, they're, like, in northern New York State. We go back over to Emily, and she knows that Aiden's parent-in-laws, basically, are, like, they kicked him out of the house, and so, like, that's why he's renting this new house, which happens to be the judge's house. This is a small town, so there is, like, a judge, and that's the judge's house. And basically, her and the judge have planned to do this 4K fundraiser to make money for Aiden, because, I mean, to the rest of the town, like, I mean, it is sad, like, this, you know, his wife died from cancer, and now he's a single dad. Like, that part is sad. He just sucks, you know, so yeah. There's that. But she's, like, on Facebook, and she sees Aiden's Facebook pop up on the judge's post, like, thanking him, but he normally doesn't really, like, post or get on Facebook or anything. We go back to Rachel, and he's taking her down for dinner, and the TV is on, which, like, makes her panic. Like, obviously, she's not used to noise and anything, but Jeopardy is on, and she's actually good at it, so she, like, pipes in, but then he kind of, like, looks at her, so she's not really sure. Like, he wants her to be normal, but, like, also shut up. He's always telling her to shut up. But she, like, kind of pipes in, and her and Cecilia start talking about music, because I think the question was, like, about a band or something like that. And she just starts talking, like, Rachel's talking, she's like, oh, my parents, and then she's like, oh, wait, like, because she's not supposed, I mean, she has a life, but, like, she's not really supposed to have that previous life, so she kind of, like, awkwardly stops talking, and we learned that Rachel was a college student, like, getting ready to graduate when this all happened to her, so she's probably, like, late 20s, early 30s-ish, I don't know. We go over to Cecilia for the first time, and she just feels like she has all this pressure built up. Like, she just wants to scream and punch someone sometimes. She can't talk to her dad about it. He basically, you know, introduced Rachel to her as someone that was going through a rough patch, and they're going to help her. And she just thinks her dad is such a nice person. And she actually thought Rachel was really, like, his girlfriend, and he was trying to play it off. But they do not act like that at all. So, like, she's kind of happy about that. But she likes Rachel. She likes Rachel because Rachel doesn't treat her like, oh, your mom died, like everybody else does. And since Rachel came to, like, live with them, she's actually been, like, eating more of her meals, and she's not as angry as she used to be. And she feels bad about the fact that she's not still sad about her mom. So she has that, like, survivor's guilt, basically. That night, he goes into Rachel's room. We're back with Rachel, and he basically comes in her room every night and has sex with her. And he and Rachel come up with these lies as to, like, what her whole scenario is. So basically, she's supposed to, like, be able to work from home, which, again, I'm entirely too nosy for this. If I had a strange woman living in my house as the daughter, like, where's the computer? Where's the what? I don't know. Like, I never hear you, like, on the phone or working. Or,
you know, my mom just died, and there's a new woman in the house. Like,
yeah, like, it's all weird. Like, I'm nosy. I'm sneaking in your room. Like, there's no way that this would last, but whatever. So he's supposedly like, she's working from home, but there's no phone and there's no computer in this house outside of like his cell phone. And Cecilia has a phone, but she can only use it when she's gone from school or for school. And this is where Rachel learns that Aiden used to be a Marine. So he wanted to be a doctor, but he like couldn't cut it or whatever. So then he became like a Marine, but he was like a medic or something in the Marines. So that's why he's good at knots. So Rachel is cramping, and it's unusual because she hasn't had a cycle in a long time because she's been malnourished and starved. But now that she has to eat because she has to be regular, like a normal person again, she's starting to have her cycle again. And she hasn't started, but she's just like cramping so bad. So at dinner that night, Aiden asks Cecilia like, hey, do you need anything from the store? And Rachel like just blurts out like, I could use some pads, even though she knows that like he's going to be mad. And because she's already like asked for bigger clothes because she can't fit the clothes anymore. Like she's like, I'm eating now. And he sends Cecilia upstairs and looks at her and was like, do you think that was appropriate? Yes, I do. And he starts saying how he regrets bringing her, and he literally like sits her down. He kicks her, like abuse, like so bad. This man like snaps so quick. We switch over to Emily. I don't know why I said 4K. I meant 5K. What's wrong with me? Anyway, they're having a 5K. And she's setting up to like, so Emily's restaurant is providing hot chocolate or whatever. And so Aiden comes up to her and it startles her. So she like hits her head and he's like, oh, like, let me help you set up your station. And she's like making the hot chocolate and he grabs her necklace and this girl is like, she's melting. She's a puddle. She loves this man. But the necklace that she's wearing is her mom's locket. And he helps her like hand out the cups and the hot chocolate to people as they're finishing the race. And at the end of this, he gives her his number. We go back to Rachel. She has started her period and she doesn't have any pads. And Cecilia and Aiden come back from the race and she snaps at him because she's like, you made me go to this race that I didn't want to go to. And then you abandoned me the whole time. Like he literally like took her to the judge and was like, here, talk to this old man, and like left her there. And he's like, I was helping a friend, blah, blah, blah. But as he takes Rachel up to her room later, she feels something like hit her foot. And so she like pushes it under her bed until he turns the light on until he doesn't see it. And then after he leaves, she looks at it and it's a note from Cecilia with pads that say, hope this helped. And we know that they're Cecilia's. And she's like so touched by this because this is the first person in 5 years that's shown her any like compassion. But she knows she can't use them because he literally probably counts her pads. So she's like, I'll just keep using toilet paper until he caves in and gets me something. And then she remembers the cameras and she's like, crap, like, I'm sure he probably saw her put those in here, like, or she's going to find out. She's like, do I give them back? Like, what do I do? Basically, like, she's pretty much damned if she does, damned if she don't kind of situation. Number 3, his victim number 3, we get her insert. And basically this one was pregnant. Now I need to circle back to this, actually. I have thoughts. Then we go over to Emily, and she's just basically, like, fantasizing about him. She wants Aiden. And then we go back to Rachel. So we kind of get a little flashback of Rachel. She had written an article, I think it was for school, and we learned that her brother had been suicidal and had, like, included her in the note. So she writes about that, and it gets published, and he's like, really? And then, like, he never speaks to her again. So she's just kind of thinking back on her life before all this happened. But that night, she gets Cecilia to have a movie night because she's, you know, as much time as she can spend out of her room, she will. And at this point, like, ever since the race, Aiden is constantly texting. Like, he's always on his phone. But yeah, so Aiden's always on his phone now. His, like, routine is off. He's kind of been, like, slipping a little bit. And now at night, she hears doors like in footsteps, like she hears doors and footsteps all the time, and she's basically assuming that great, like he's going into Cecilia's room at night, like is he SAing her basically. We go back over to Cecilia and she's kind of upset because like suddenly her dad has some new woman in his life and she does not like it. She's still upset about the race and she kind of thinks that him and Rachel are still a thing, and so she kind of feels like he's cheating on Rachel, like that's kind of how it seems. And so like that's basically why she gave Rachel the pads, like that's some kind of defiance. And he had told her to stay away from Rachel's room, but he's like texting all the time now, and she doesn't think that her mom would like how he's acting. So before her mom died, she had talked to her and basically was like, you know, you and your dad are going to be alone. You guys need to stick together, have each other's back. And she hates how easily her dad, like, has kept it together. Like, at no point in time did he fall apart or was he, like, distraught. And not only did he not do it, Cecilia was. So it was like, why am I by myself in this? And then her grandparents kicked her out of their house. So, like, she's like, I can never, like, basically when she was in the house, like, she could see her mom. Like, she could picture her mom on the couch and all that stuff. But, like, now she's not in that space. So she doesn't have any true memories of her mom, like, in a space. And before her mom died, she remembers them having an argument because her mom had told Aiden, like, my parents can just take her. And he's like, no, this is my daughter. She's mine. Like, I'm going to raise her. And she loves her dad, but she feels like at times she's not enough for him to, like, fill some void, and that he's going to just fill it with these other women. We go back to Emily, and now her and Aiden text all the time, but she doesn't ask about Cecilia and she doesn't ask about his wife. He still comes to the restaurant as usual, and they keep it casual, but, like, he'll, like, brush her hand, like, stuff like that when they're, like, passing a glass or whatever. That woman from the beginning, like the earlier chapters, is still missing, but at this point, like, it's been so long that everyone pretty much assumes that this lady is dead. And out of the blue, one Friday, he texts her and is like, you know, is it past closing time or something like that? And she's cleaning up with, like, two of her coworkers, but she's like, hey, you guys go ahead, like, I'll catch up or whatever. So she lets him come in after hours, and they sit, they talk, and she decides, I'm gonna do it. So she kisses him, and that leads them to the pantry, and they have sex. So they are officially a thing. Back with Rachel, it is, like, super late. She's in her room, and she has not had dinner, obviously, because we know that Aiden is out and about. He comes in, he gets undressed, doesn't say, like, you hungry or anything, and he goes to have sex with her, which is like, didn't you just do that?
Yeah.
Like, you literally just did that. You don't have to do that tonight. But while he's doing that, she notices that he has scratch marks on him, and that's the first time that's ever happened, so she knows that this wasn't, like, a kill. This is, like, a woman that he wants to be with. And so she's freaking out because she's like, he's not going to need me anymore. Like, he's going to find a new me and, like, whatever. But then at the same time, she's like, I hope that this lady is okay. But Rachel can tell that Aiden's happy. And the next day, when he handcuffs her, like, to the radiator, he slips a little bit and they come right off. Like, he doesn't close them all the way. And she sits there and she's like, should I run? Should I stay? What about the cameras? She doesn't know what to do. And he has just left for the day with Cecilia. And she's like, I wonder if the cameras even work. Because, like, he didn't say anything about the pads. Did he not see it? Like, she doesn't know, like, are these live cameras only? Do they record video? Like, she has no idea. And then she knows, like, if he finds her, if she runs, he'll kill her. Or, like, he'll kill himself so that, like, he doesn't get thrown in jail. Or he'll run off with Cecilia. Or he'll run off with Cecilia and kill them both, basically. So she's, like, running all these scenarios. And she doesn't think, like, now is the right time. So she just sits there. And she pushes the cuffs, like, together so that they're actually locked. We get a snippet from number 4. And at this point in time, like, he's had his daughter. So Cecilia's alive. And she, like, just took her first steps. And he basically tells her, like, he's talking to his victim. And he's like, she won't need me soon, talking about Cecilia. And she's like, yeah, maybe not. Because she's like, you know, she has 3 kids and she doesn't want to comfort him. She wanted to get her one little jab in. And she's like, I know that statement made him kill me faster, but I don't care. We go to Emily. And they have stopped searching altogether for the missing woman. And it is now, like, Thanksgiving time. She's preparing the restaurant for Thanksgiving. Her and Aiden didn't talk for, like, almost a day after they had sex. But then he texted her and was like, I'm thinking of you. And so after that, they've gone back to normal. They're, like, they're texting all the time. But he's, like, very touchy. And one night after close, he comes and gives her a necklace. And it has, like, an affinity symbol. Like, oh, no. Not at all. And that night, she is like, or not the same night as a necklace, but this night or whatever, she's closing up and she's like, well, I want to give him my own little thing, but it's just cookies. So she's like, I'm just going to go to his house. Girl, no. So she texts him and is like, hey, I'm 2 minutes away. He's like, what? Yeah, like, I'm just down the street. And he's like, okay, well, stay right there. Like, I'm coming. He says, well, Cecilia's sleeping and, you know, it's her first Thanksgiving without her mom. Like, I don't want to wake her up. When the fact is that him, Cecilia, and Rachel are sitting on the couch watching TV. So she is not asleep, but whatever. And so Emily's like, oh, like, I didn't even think about that. Like, how, you know, I'm so terrible, basically. And so she's like, I'm waiting down the street or whatever. Or she, like, waits there for him. So he, like, comes out. He literally ran out. He doesn't have a coat on. He's barely got clothes on. And he, like, kisses her, and it's really brief, but then like she can kind of tell he doesn't want to leave, and they start making out when there's like this blood curdling scream. This part pissed me off so bad.
Yeah.
So back in the house, what happens is, so Rachel, we go back to Rachel. So Rachel like is thinking like how Aiden basically told her to tell Cecilia that the reason she didn't go home for Thanksgiving is because her family doesn't want her to because they travel or something. So that night they had dinner and then they were watching a movie, and he was texting during the whole movie, and then all of a sudden he was like, oh shit, and he just like was like, I gotta go, I'll be right back, I just have to run around the corner and get something, like I'll be right back. And he like points the direction that he's going, and he leaves his phone. So she's like, oh, okay, should I go? But she's like, I stayed for the girl last time. So she's like, I know I have to take her. No, you do not. This is not your responsibility. You are a kidnappee of 5 years. Cecilia is going to be fine. Like, I would not be, and I can't say that. I've never been in that situation. I know there's like all like the syndromes. But like, girl, I'm like screaming at the book, like, go. So she like is like, okay, he went west, basically. He left the keys, he left his phone. So she tells Cecilia, I'm going for a ride. And she's like, you need to come with me. Cecilia's like, well, I can't. I'd have to ask my dad. So she's like, oh, you'll be fine. And she grabs her, and she can tell like Cecilia's annoyed and also like afraid, because why are you touching me? So she's like, I'm trying to convince her, like, she's like, it's okay to spend time without him, like, you can leave and not be around him. And I'm like, girl, leave. And Cecilia says, you don't understand, nobody does, and she's angry. So at this point, Rachel is thinking, like, I know he sneaks in your room at night. She thinks she's talking about this. She says, I know what he does to you. And Cecilia's like, what? And she decides, look, I don't have time for this. I'm just going to force this girl to go. So she stands up and she grabs Cecilia and she starts pulling on her. And she like trips on the table and she just starts screaming bloody murder. And I'm annoyed by everybody. I'm annoyed by the both of them. They're both, why are you screaming? And why are you trying to take her? Like, it's a whole bunch of stupidity. Back with Emily, they hear the scream and then they just stand there. And she's like, the scream literally sounds like a slasher movie. And he goes, that's my daughter, because they can tell it's from his house. And he says she has night terrors, which I don't think that's true. She never really had a, because he says it multiple times, but I don't think she ever actually had one. So Emily thinks like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And he like takes off running back to the house. So she leaves and then she hears a thud and she's like, did I hit something? And it was just the cookies. He left the cookies on the car as she drives off. So he runs back into the house and like he runs right up to Rachel and Cecilia. He grabs like both of their arms and like Rachel was standing there like, shh, shh, stop screaming or whatever. And so as soon as he grabs them, Cecilia's like, it's fine. I thought I saw something. Like Rachel was trying to help me. It's okay. Which, okay, then why did you do the damn screaming? Like, why did you do that? And Rachel can tell like he's pissed. Like he is pissed. And so he sends Cecilia to her room and he like grabs Rachel and starts putting her up against the wall. He's like, what did you do? And she's like, she's trying to talk and he's asking, what did you do? And then he's like, shut up, just shut the F up. Like, and then he's like pushing her against the wall, like putting his arm to her throat, choking her. And she's thinking like he's done this, but normally he stops, but he's not stopping this time. So she's about to pass out and then he releases her. She's like gasping for air and she's like, she just can't even get her head on straight. And so she like kind of fought back, which is what she's trained herself not to do. Like she's got all these rules of survival basically. And when she fights back, that pisses him off. So he's like, shut up. Which I'm like, doesn't your daughter hear this? Right. And he just chokes her again and she passes out. We go to Cecilia and she's just thinking back about her dad, about how he taught her how like words and he would teach her like the names of groups of animals and she got like obsessed with it. Like her favorite, which is also my favorite, a murder of crows, like a group of crows is called a murder of crows. I was like, that's so cool. But she basically is like thinking about how she knows that her dad loves her. We go back to Rachel and he has taken her to the truck and is taking her to the woods. And she's just thinking about her life and how he wasn't the first stranger to hurt her. And so he thought when he like took her that he was going to like, that he had that up on her, but in fact, like he didn't basically. So he takes her to the woods. He drops her on the ground. She splits her head. Her head is bleeding. And she's like, he's literally going to kill me. She hears like gun click, but then he's like on top of her and he whispers something, but she can't hear her because her head's gushing blood. And he starts like pushing on her head where it's bleeding and like she just passes out from the pain. We get a flashback of Rachel and she remembers like her roommate or friend or both, Julie, was dating somebody. So they went out. She convinced her to go out. And that night at the club, she did not like keep a good eye on her drink. And she basically got roofied. So as she was like, she decides to leave and she's in the cab and she's like feeling the effects. And she asked the cab driver, like, can I text my friend? And as she's like trying to, she passes out. The next thing she knows, she wakes up in the ER. Julie's there and it's like, what happened or whatever. And she's like, what's going on? They're trying to draw her blood, of course. And she's like, no, I don't consent to this. And like, nobody's listening to her. She throws up everywhere. And basically they discharge her and tell her she just had alcohol poisoning. So she's like, somebody like abused me, basically. Like they drugged me and like nobody listened to me. And this is basically the first time that she was hurt. So like, that's why she said Aiden didn't get that like first time thing. And that is what taught her survival, basically. So we go back to present time. Rachel wakes up in the house, but she's like on this table and she realizes that she's in a basement and there's boxes everywhere. Like, what's going on? Days and days go by. She's still in the basement, but he's like, now he's catering to her. Like he's feeding her, spoon feeding her soup. And I'm like, where's Cecilia? Like, where did he tell her you went? Like, that's weird. Right. Especially like if you like, she left after this fight. Like, that's what I'm like, I'd be like, cause she's 13. Like, girl, come on.
Right. She's not dumb. I mean,
yeah, and she's not like little. Like I would be like, okay, you guys had this huge fight, and then now she's gone. Whatever. So Cecilia or Rachel is thinking that okay, he didn't kill me because he, and it's true. Like he has this need to have someone need him, and Cecilia like doesn't need him as much, which is what one of his victims said. So like she's like he kept me around because I need him now. And one day he finally takes her upstairs and like washes her up. He washes her hair. There's like blood coming out. It still hurts. And she like throws up everywhere. And he like takes her over the toilet and like while she's throwing up, she like grabs his hand, which she doesn't really mean to do, but like she's, you know, she's messed up. And he finally lets her go back in her room and lets her sleep in her bed. And this is the first time she actually has slept in her bed since she stayed there. But now she's like feverish. She's like, I need a doctor. And he's like, you'll be fine. Like, you know, she probably had encephalitis or something. I don't know. Jesus. And Rachel tells him, like, your wife, she was young, and, like, she says she feels sorry for Cecilia, and Aiden just says cancer, basically. And she thinks, like, oh, I kind of thought, like, he had killed her, but, no. And Aiden says she beat it once, but it came back 5 years ago. So that's kind of what, like, triggered him or maybe like or whatever to right. I don't know, like we don't get a timeline of how long really like it's been since he's been in college, but I'm assuming like 20 years or something. So that's when he started, but 5 years ago is when he took her. So she also tells him about the handcuffs. I don't know if she was delirious or what, because I wouldn't have told him this, but she tells him like, you know, one day you left and you didn't do the handcuffs, but I didn't leave. I just sat there, which I guess it was kind of like a tactic too, to like, look, I trust you. I don't want to leave, like, you know. Mm-hmm. And he says he knows. So basically it was a test. Like he didn't do that. He didn't close them all the way because he was testing her. So we get more flashback on Rachel. So she, after this whole roofie situation, she is like obsessed with finding the guy who roofed her to the point that it's ruining her life. So she gets kicked out of law school. She loses basically all of her friends. She loses her almost boyfriend, Matt. And Julie is, like, the only person that's still, like, hanging around. And Julie's like, girl, you need a break, whatever. So this is what leads to her getting kidnapped. So she decides to go rent a cabin 2 hours outside of Manhattan, because that's where she was living. And she just, like, reads and, like, relaxes, and she, like, walks in the woods. And one day she was walking, and this white truck pulled up behind her, and it had a siren on it, but she was like, okay, maybe it's like an undercover or whatever. And the man pulls up, and he like looks clean. He looks like a nice guy. She's not afraid of him because he had a siren, like, you know, that automatic, like, the police, we should trust them thing. And he pulls a gun on her and says, don't move. And he says, like, do you give me your phone, your keys? Do you have jewelry on you? And so she's like, gives him everything, and she's like, okay, like, I'm just getting robbed, and then he'll leave, but then he makes her get in the truck. So she complies, because she's like, that's probably my best option, and then eventually he'll let me go. But she looks in the back, and he has, like, handcuffs, a shovel, rope, and she's like, oh, he's gonna kill me. So they're driving. He doesn't, like, blindfold her or anything, and she's trying to, like, talk to him, like, you know, whatever. And he's, like, super focused, and then all of a sudden he does a U-turn, and he tells her to put this bandana on, and he drives from there. And so basically he like was going to kill her, but then something like makes him not. So he tells her like to get out and walk with him. And it's like, if you try anything, I'll take you back in the truck and basically kill you. And as she's like this is when she's getting led to the shed. She does see a flash of the house and like the yard on her way to the shed. And he gets in the shed and like he's like, I've been preparing this, but I'm not done. He has soundproofed it, and he's like got like a mattress in there, like a blow up mattress. And he tells her that, don't scream, and she's basically just, she's just in the shed. And she like hopes that people are going to look for her, but because she had been acting so weirdly before she is now disappeared, she wonders if people are going to think like she just wanted to be gone, or maybe she's done something to herself and then they won't look for her. So back in present time, Rachel is getting better, and Aiden tells her she can start coming back down for dinner. So she goes down, and Cecilia smiles at her, but Rachel's like, She's like, I hate you. Which, I mean, like, she's a kid, but like, and you should have tried to take her.
Right.
Like, how did you think that was going to go? I don't know what you thought, but she's
I mean, good intentions and all, but
yeah, but
you did try to kidnap the kid.
Yeah, like, no. So I mean, I was annoyed that she was screaming, but like, I completely understand. And so Rachel's like, I hate her, and she blames her for not getting out, and she's like, I never hated women, I would never do that, but I hate Cecilia. And like, she's so like, I love pettiness. She's being petty, so she's like at the table. Cecilia needs the salt's right by her, and she just like ignores her, like she's not doing anything. So Cecilia has to like get up and like get the salt, and she's like, I get the smallest pleasure out of like ignoring her. So Cecilia's just like, can I go to like my room or whatever? Like, she's like, I'm out of here. And so then that night, like, Rachel's laying in bed, and she knows, like, it's her fault. Like, she knows that she should have tried that or whatever. And she's thinking, like, she wonders if her family has moved on, if they ever think about her. And she's like, they probably think that she killed herself, like, based off of her behavior before. So time goes by, and Aiden comes in for something, and he drops an envelope because he's getting sloppy. And so she doesn't see the address, so she still doesn't know what like town she's in. But what she does learn is his name. So this is the time when she finally learns his name is Aidan Thomas. And she thinks of like all the serial killers and how like basically when their name gets out there, like that's how they get caught. Like, they slip, like BTK.
Yeah.
The idiot. So we go to Emily, and she is texting Aiden asking if everything's all right, because the last she saw him was the scream thing. And he does not text her back. He doesn't text her back the entire shift, and she's like spiraling out of control. And then it's like a whole week, and he still hasn't like text her back, and he hasn't come in for his regular days. And so she's thinking like, okay, like surely he'll just show up one day and have like some explanation, but he doesn't. So her friends are like, what's wrong? Like, as they're going home from work one night, and she's like, I'm just tired, but she's really like depressed about Aiden. So she's like reading back through their texts, and she's like, I know this was real. I know he likes me. And she tries texting him again, but like, she's like deletes them. And I'm like, girl, chill out. Like,
major pick me behavior.
Man, you are being like, you are making more out of this. I get it. I've been delusional. I get it. But one night she decides to like go out with her friends, and she's like, she thinks she sees his truck, but then like when she looks again, it's gone. And she's like, was he like waiting for me? Like just to get a glimpse of me? Like, she is spiraling out of control. So back in the house, Cecilia goes out to like check a sound because they're either eating dinner or watching TV. And Cecilia goes out and comes back in covered in blood. And while she goes out, by the way, Aiden looks at Rachel, and she's like, how am I gonna get up and run? Like that would be the dumbest thing ever, because the door is open. Like, ooh. So Cecilia comes back in. She's like covered in blood, but she's holding this like wounded dog, and it is like gushing blood. And Cecilia says like maybe someone hit her on the highway and left her, which makes Rachel perk up because she's like, oh, like maybe the highway is like nearby. Like, I wonder how many miles it is. And Aiden's like, I don't want to help the dog. And he like pulls out his gun. He's like, it's too late. And he's like, I'm going to put it out of its misery. And so Cecilia's like crying, like, no, let's keep him. Let's keep him. Let's keep him. So Rachel finally like butts in, and she's like, well, I mean, it is still like breathing or whatever. And he like mugs her. But he finally like caves, and he's like, okay, like give me my little kit, because Rachel says like, you can help her. Basically, like, he was a medic in the Marines or whatever. Like, you can help the dog. So he does. And then after he's like all bandaged up, Cecilia's like, well, I can go in the basement and find him something to sleep on. But he's like, no, I don't want you to go down there. So she doesn't. The next day, he comes to get Rachel, and he puts her in the truck. He doesn't cover her eyes. He doesn't hide her. He's just driving into town. And she's like, what is going on? And I'm like, I don't know. I thought he was going to like introduce her which isn't exactly what he does, but whatever. So she's confused, and he's like, what do you think about the town? What? I don't have the patience to like be kidnapped. Like, you're just gonna have to kill me, because I'm not playing this game with you. What I think that you kidnapped me and I want to get out of here. That's what I think. I don't care about anything else. Like, what?
I don't care how I get out, as long as it's
like I'm not gonna pacify you as your kidnappee. So like, I would be dead, but that's me. So but she's like, it's a lovely town, like whatever. And this old man starts walking up, and he's like, okay, like he's gonna kill me or what? Like, what's gonna happen? And it's the judge. And so he rolls down the window, and he's like, yeah, this is Rachel. This is my cousin. Which I'm like, why?
Stories are differing.
Yeah, why? Like, why didn't you just keep the same story? Like,
so, because like, all it takes is for
this is a small town.
All it takes is for him to talk to
like
Cecilia, and it's like, okay,
like your cousin, and she's going like, no, I've never seen that man in my life, or that girl in my life. Like, why didn't you just tell Cecilia that she was your cousin? Like, I mean, just keep the same story. But whatever. So he introduces her, and then like the judge is like, oh, where are you from? And Aiden quickly says Rayford, Florida, or something like that. And so Rachel assumes like, oh, he must be from there, because he was so quick with like an answer. And she thinks that he wants her to see like how trapped she is. So he's taking her town, basically like, look, like everyone likes me. Like, even if you got out, like they're not going to believe you, like all of that stuff. We go back to Emily and this idiot. So she decides she's going to go by his house because his truck is there. And his house is like the only one. It's not decorated. So we're in between Christmas and Thanksgiving right now. His is the only one not decorated. And she wonders like, maybe he's just depressed. Like, maybe he needs me to like force him to want my help. Maybe he doesn't know how to call out for help. Delusional. Back with Rachel, they have dinner. And after dinner, he tells her he needs her to do something. He's like, it's almost Christmas break, and I need you to look after Cecilia while I'm at work. Because he does not let Cecilia have a moment of peace. Like, she cannot have any, like, alone time. So he's like, Cecilia will be in charge of letting the dog out, so there's no reason for you to be, like, going out the door or whatever. And he gives her this wristband GPS tracker, and he's literally going to watch her movements. And he, like, melts it together so that she cannot take it off. So now she has a GPS tracker. And she's just thinking, like, I wonder, like, what Cecilia did that he will not let her out of his sight. So we go to Cecilia, and she knows that her dad has asked Rachel to watch her. She wishes that he would trust her, and she goes, it was just that one time. So what we learn is, so Cecilia hates her school. She's been at the school for 2 years because her previous school she was going to, her dad went to, like, a parent-teacher conference, and obviously there's probably some weirdness about her, Cecilia. And so her teacher was kind of like, what's the home life like? And so he got pissed off and he made her switch school. So she hates the school. But after her mom died, one day she just like left school in the middle of the day, got on a train, and like went to Poughkeepsie, right? Isn't that what that movie's about? Yeah, because I was like, oh, I know that name. Okay. So she goes to like somewhere nearby, and she was like, I was going to just come right back before he ever find out. But as soon as she gets off the train, he literally like grabs her and is like, oh my God, don't do that again. The school called. And she's like, how did you find me? And because he tracks her phone. Like he definitely has Life 360 on it. Like whatever. Like he knows where she's at. And he goes and he almost says like someone could have grabbed her, which is hilarious. Hilarious, right. My guy.
Oh, he's the expert on that.
Yeah. But he's actually more concerned because, like, if she went missing, then they would probably come in his house and search his stuff. And, she's like, that's the first time I saw real fear in my dad's eyes. So, back with Rachel, Aiden has basically told her, like, her story is, like, she took vacation, basically, during this break time. And so that's why she's available to watch CC. Whatever. And Cecilia asks Rachel, like, or she's not really asking her. She goes, like, you're not really a social butterfly. And Rachel says, I could say the same about you. Neither one of us ever leave this damn house. I'm at least the kidnappee. Why are you in here? And Cecilia's like, oh, I didn't mean anything by it. And, like, she's named the dog. The dog's name is Rosa now. And at this point, like, Rachel's thinking about, like, other kidnap cases. And she thinks about, like, the Ariel Castro case. in Ohio, where he had them for like 20 years though.
Yeah.
But it's like, and that's the thing about this book is like that like mental like fear, like because in that case, if you don't know, which is a real case, like when they finally got out, they thought it was a trap. I can't remember whichever one it was, but like he left the door unlocked or something, and so she went to the door, but she was so afraid to go out because she thought that he had like set this up. Because I mean, 20 years of like torture and like he did all kinds of like I've listened to that case. It's all kinds of crazy stuff, and that's kind of how Rachel is now. Like anytime something happens, she's like, "Oh, the cameras. Like, do the cameras work? Is he like testing me?" And then like waiting for his moment to pounce. So like that whole thing.
A lot of mind games.
Yeah. And that's what they do. Like, it's not just physical. It's a lot of mental. So we get an insert from another of his victims, number 5. And this one did not go as planned because she actually was able to get away from him for a little bit. Wherever this murder happened, she knew the area better than him in the woods. And she assumes, like, he's done this before, but he has to, like, switch up his, like, location sometimes. So she had gotten away, but he catches her. And before he kills her, he tells her, like, that his wife is sick, but that the doctors say she'll be fine. So we go back to Emily, and she is still spiraling. She cannot sleep. And she decides, like, on her next off day, she's like, I'm just going to go by his house. And so she goes, and her plan is just to wait in the neighborhood to, like, run into him. Like, she is sick. So back in the house, Rachel is, like, she's, like, trying to snoop around. So she's checking the bookshelf, like, looking for any of his stuff. And she hears something. She's like, oh, crap, like, he's back already. But it's the doorbell. And so she doesn't answer it. And then, like, there's knocking. And she's like, the dog is, like, whining. And so she's like, shh, shh. And then the door unlocked. This, I cannot. I can't believe, I cannot. So the door unlocks because it's Emily. So Emily parks nearby. And she was going to just, like, be in the area. But she's like, no, I'll just go up to his house. His car's not there.
So weird.
So she gives me, I put it in here later. She gives me Lowen vibes from Verity. Like, yes, she is, she is special. So she, like, sees his car's not there. So she's like, okay, well, I'll just go up there. So she rings the doorbell. And she knocked, and then she, like, hears, like, she can hear Rachel in there going, shh, shh, to the dog. So she's like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to look for a key and let myself in. You are not even dating this man.
Right, and I would be real upset if you just
came in my house.
Yeah, and if you hear somebody, like, you could expect it to be my child.
Child, who I told not to answer the door, or something. Like, why would you just let... She's never even been to his house.
Like, that would be an automatic, like...
I'm never speaking to you again.
Restraining order and everything, like...
Yeah, like, if you thought this was going to be, like, the answer... Like, you're crazy. You're insane. You've never even been invited to this house, so now you're there and letting yourself in. She, like, looks around. She's like, this pot of flowers should be dead by now. So, like, why is it still out here? Oh, and then she finds the key. Yeah. Okay. So, Rachel looks up, and it's not him. It's a woman. So, okay. And so she's pissed off because she's like, okay, he's going to kill us both. Like, he's going to come home and kill both of us now. Why would you do that? And Emily goes, well, I thought I smelled smoke, so I just wanted to come in. And she knows that she's lying. You didn't smell no damn smoke. And she's like, is this a test? Like, he send this woman here to, like, check on me? Like, what's going on? And she looks at her, and she notices a necklace. It's an infinity necklace, and it's hers. It's the necklace she was wearing when he kidnapped her 5 years ago. And she tells Emily, well, like, hey, I'm Rachel. I just got here the other day. And so Emily looks annoyed because it's only been like so many days or whatever since he stopped talking to her. So she's assuming that this is the reason he stopped talking to her. And Emily leaves and she like assumes that they're together. So Rachel goes to her room and she knows that this is the woman that he slept with that night. And she's mad at herself because she's like, why didn't I just tell her? Like, maybe, and I'm glad you didn't tell her, honestly, because that probably would not have gone over well. But he comes home, he doesn't mention a single thing. So she again is like, okay, what kind of cameras do you have? Because you are not, do you ever look at them? Like, was that, it probably wasn't even real. It was probably something like a picture and he probably just showed it that one time and was like, I got cameras. And so she wonders if, like, maybe he's gone and killed him. Like, maybe he does know and he's killed her already, but he doesn't, like, act like he normally does after he kills someone. Then we get number 7, and basically Aiden's talking to her, and this is the victim. He's like, I killed the last one too fast, and we learned that at this point his wife has not recovered from her cancer as they thought she would. So we go back to Rachel, and she is trying to remove the GPS tracker, but she cannot. And she goes to Cecilia's room because she's like kind of been wandering around and she wants to get in the basement and she wants to try to pick the lock. So she goes to Cecilia and she's like, can I get a pin? And she doesn't want a pin because she's already tried a pin on the lock, but she wanted to get in Cecilia's room. So as Cecilia's like looking for a pin, she sees like a safety pin or a bobby pin and she uses that. And she thinks back to her almost boyfriend, Matt, and how he had been like watching these YouTube videos. Does it ever say why he was trying to pick locks?
I don't think so.
He was just, I don't know why he was doing that, but she was like watching the videos with him kinda, and so she kind of like remembers. And so she does like, you know the videos where they put like the bobby pin and then like something else and they're like twisted. That has never worked. I have been trying to pick a lock since I was a kid, like just because that's always on TV, like in movies and stuff.
You can get like a little like lock picking kit. And
terrifying.
literally it's these like two little
tools,
weird keys.
I'm scared.
And yeah, well, I was cleaning out my cousin's room one day years ago. And I found one and I was like, I'm keeping this.
Yeah, I'm taking this. See, this is why at least my house has keyless entry on it, so you can't pick my lock. So don't even think about it if you were thinking about it. But anyways, so she goes and she picks the lock. She gets in the basement. So she goes in the basement and she sees like boxes that say Caroline on it, and that was his wife's name, but they're like taped up. So she's like, okay, I'm not gonna mess with those. But he is a trophy keeper, like so many serial killers are. So he has clothes, he has jewelry, he has her stuff, he has other people's stuff. And she finds these boxes of Polaroids, and they're not of his victims dead. They're like leading up to it. So he basically stalks all his victims before he does it, because there's pictures of her in there of like the days before he kidnapped her, like preparing to get her. And she finds like these handcuffs, and she also finds a gun. And suddenly, like, he's home. So she's, like, rushing. Like, she hears him pull up in the driveway. We go over to Emily, and Emily is, like, she's pissed off. She wants an explanation. So she goes to town, and she's like, I'm going to find him, basically. How the hell do you know he's in town? Like, why would you just assume? But she sees him, surprise, surprise, in the alley behind her restaurant. And, like, she doesn't have a coat on, so he comes up to her, and he gives her his scarf, which is kind of distracting her from her little mission. And she's about to ask about Rachel. But he goes, I'm sorry, I've been busy at work and at home, and I'm sorry I didn't text back. And she's like, it's okay. And he says, no, it's not. You're perfect. I just have a lot going on at home. So she, like, moves the scarf a little bit, and he sees that she still has the necklace on. And it's been weeks, so he, like, kind of touches her. And she says, I have a confession. And she tells him about her adventure to his house. And he's like, somehow he's like, why'd you go? And she's like, well, I smelled smoke. And so I went in, and he seems annoyed, rightfully so though, because if this was a completely other normal situation, there's no explanation as to why you went in my house. Cause that's what he was like. How'd you get in? And she's like, funny story. I let myself in. Like, you got to find another location, dude, for that key. And she says, like, but everything was fine. Like, there wasn't any smoke. And he seems kind of amused now. And he asks, like, did you see anyone? And she says, oh, I saw your cousin. Which I don't, did Rachel say she was his cousin? I don't remember her saying that I'm your cousin. So I don't know how she.
I don't know.
I don't know. That might be a oops. But Aiden says, like, oh, that's good. And he says, well, my truck won't start. Like, do you have any jumper cables? I was like, don't go with him. He's going to kill you. I was like, don't go. But all of a sudden, one of her coworkers pops out the back door and it's like, oh, like, I didn't know, like, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But, like, this has pissed him off. It ruined the moment. So he's like, don't worry about the cables. But he's like, keep the scarf. I'll just get it from you later. So Rachel hears him pulling up at home. And this is when he comes home abruptly. So she runs upstairs and, like, sits down like she was reading. And he, like, looks at her weird. And she's like, oh, my God. Like, I didn't fix my hair. Do I look flushed? Like, do I have dust on me? Like, does he know? And he's like, where's Cecilia? And he starts to, like, move towards the basement, but she's like, hey, like, I can help with dinner tonight. So he goes, because she's like, if he goes down right now, he'll just, like, feel my presence. And he probably would. Like, I mean, he's a sociopath. Like, I don't know. So they have dinner, and that night she just hopes that he doesn't find the safety pin that she still has. And she assumes that Emily has told him, like, that she came in the house at this point. So we go over to Cecilia, and she's just thinking, like, her dad is nice, and she's not afraid of him, but, like, it's easy to, like, get on his bad side, basically. And she's thankful for Rachel for convincing her dad to let them keep the dog, even though Rachel's weird. And she thinks that, you know, Rachel's just weird because she's been through things. And so, like, that's why she gave her one of her pens, because she wants to be nice to her. But she also gave her the pen because she wanted her to get out of her room, because she considers Rachel a friend, even though she's older than her. But she also likes to just have some alone time, which her dad also likes. And she wants to tell Rachel, like, things that she hasn't told anyone else, but she just hasn't. So Rachel, that night, after he, like, comes and does his nightly thing, he leaves and she starts working out. She's like, I gotta, like, build up some strength. So she's, like, doing squats and, like, all this stuff in the room. And she just keeps going to the basement. So she makes plans to, like, use this gun. She finds pictures of Emily, though, and he's doing the same thing. Pictures of Emily at work. She finds the coaster from the restaurant in the beginning, so he did take that. And she finds a book about, like, the Hudson. And there's, like, a page highlighted, and she assumes that this page is about the town that they're in. So she, like, is looking at the map and seeing, like, how far things are. She sees, like, the town center and, like, a monument. So she's, like, making all her notes. And she also finds, like, a list of, like, different people and jobs and, like, what they do, because he's a psycho. And she hears Cecilia, because she's come down and she's looking for her. So she goes upstairs, and Cecilia's like, do you want to go walk the dog with me? And she's like, no, I can't. She said, I'm working on something. So Cecilia is like, oh, like, were you down there looking for something? And Rachel says, just batteries. And Cecilia goes, you know, I go down there at night in the basement. I'm not going in the basement at night.
Oh, heck no.
That's creepy. No. She says, well, my mom's stuff is down there. And so, like, she'll go down and, like, smell her sweater and, like, stuff like that. And so I immediately was like, oh, that's the sound that you're hearing. So he's not going in her room at night. So he's at least not a creep with his daughter. That is Cecilia you hear moving around. Because she's like, yeah, I wait till everybody's asleep, even though Rachel's not asleep. And she says that her dad, like, knows that she goes down there, but, like, doesn't know. I don't know. But she says that she steals the key because he leaves the key in his coat pocket and doesn't know that she knows that. And that it's funny that Rachel didn't want to take the tape off the box, because Cecilia says, I take the tape off, and then I just put new tape on and throw the tape away at school so he doesn't see it. And so Rachel's like, dang, like, I was wrong. He's not doing anything to her. And Cecilia says, like, you know, me and my dad are close. And Rachel realizes that Cecilia does have a bond with her dad that she can't break. And we go back over to Emily, and all of a sudden, Aiden does show up for his normal Thursday. And it's just a regular night. The next day, the judge comes in, and she's like, you know, Judge, we should do something else really nice for Aiden and Cecilia. And she's like, we should have a Christmas party for them at their house. How are you going to plan a party at my house?
Right.
Especially for people who very clearly do not want that at their house. And the judge is like, I mean, that's kind of imposing. Yes, it is. But obviously, Emily doesn't have any limits, so whatever. But Emily's like, you know, we can do it outside. We don't have to go in, and we can hang up their Christmas lights. So he's like, okay, whatever, because he's like, you know, whatever to get reelected, whatever. And this is where I was like, she is giving me Lowen vibes so bad. Like, she will not stop.
You're right.
Crazy lady. So Rachel is feeling guilty, like, because she's like, I need to get out. Like, he's killed more people because I haven't done anything while I've been here for these 5 years. Like, I have to get him, like, exposed. So at dinner, Aiden tells her, like, he tells, really Cecilia, he tells her about the party. And Cecilia's like, I don't want to have that party. Like, I don't want to do that. And Rachel just can't believe that he's, like, even letting this party happen. And she's like, he must be planning something. Like, that's the only reason. So that night, like, she works out again. She's doing her squats. And she's like, okay, this party will have him distracted. So this is a good time. So she thinks he's letting the party happen because he's going to try to get Emily. And so she's like, I have to save her. And then we get to number 8. And this was like, I was wondering, is this his wife? Because she's talking about, like, she's upset. Like, he took her death into his hands. And, like, she knew she was going to die anyway. But I was like, I wonder if this is just a different woman, or is it his wife? Like, did he kill her?
Which one did it say it was again?
8. So it's since he's had Rachel. But she was, like, talking about beaches and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know. But it was like, she basically was like, I knew I was going to die, but, like, he took my death into his hands, and I don't know. The only reason I think it wasn't her is because then he knew he would have to move. Like, he pretty much, so I'm like, why would you do that? But then, I don't know, maybe he couldn't help himself. Like, I don't know. So back with Rachel, Cecilia is like still moping around about this party. She doesn't want to have it. But Rachel has been like practicing with this gun, like wielding this gun. And she thinks like how she could kill him in his sleep, but she doesn't want to do that because then she'll go to jail. And then Cecilia obviously will be traumatized seeing her dad die. And she also like doesn't want like the burden of killing someone. And she wants him to go to jail, which like, yes, I want him to go to jail too. I hate when they die.
Yeah.
I want them to go to jail. So she knows like, she's upset because she knows like here shortly Cecilia's probably going to be upset with her about uprooting her entire life because she's planning on exposing him. So that night he comes in to cuff her and he like misses and she flinches, which is what she's trained herself not to do. And all of a sudden I was like, why are you doing this? All of a sudden she like decides to fight back. Like they're full blown tussling and I'm like, you're this close to whatever your plan is. Like, right. Why did you do that? And she's like, I don't know why I did that, but I'm like, yeah, why? He's like, what the fuck? Like, he's like, what are you doing? But she can tell, like, he's flustered. And she's like, yeah, he's afraid. Like, he doesn't want me to get away. And he, like, snaps at her. And he's like, you have some nerve. I found you. I'm the only reason you're alive. Blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I'm sorry. Like, he's like, shut up. And she doesn't even mean it. She's like, I'm sorry. Like, just to say that. But she's like, okay, I need to be careful. Yeah, like, why did you do that? What if he just decided to kill you tonight? Right. Like, why did you do that? So he finally tells Rachel about the party and she's like, duh, because I was sitting right there. And she's like, does he not think I can hear her? Like, I already knew about the party. But basically he's like, you're going to be in your room the entire time, which I think is so weird. Why didn't you just let her be like out there? Like, I feel like multiple people now know this person is around and that'd be like, where's Rachel?
And she's gone just for the party.
Just for the party. Like, oh, she didn't want to come down. Well, he basically, because Emily says that, oh, you didn't want to come out. Okay, I guess. I don't know. That's weird. So she's not allowed to go. And then he like makes her like tell her like, what's your name? Why are you here? What did I like? All that stuff. And then we get number 9. And this victim is like, he looked scared of me because she had fought back. And he basically tells her like, I have a life. And she's like, yeah, so did I. But he kills her. So we get Emily and she's like headed over to the party. She wears his scarf, and she's like worried that someone's going to recognize it. But then she also wants him to see her wearing it. So she's like, that one, I'm going to wear it anyways. She's crazy. And she sees Cecilia and she thinks like how Cecilia doesn't really look like him, but whatever. And everyone has to stay outside. But Aiden like keeps going in and out, and he goes in and he locks the door when he comes out too. And then as he goes in, she can see him, and he just, like, will go in and then, like, stand there behind the door. And, like, it looks like he's, like, listening, which we know he's listening for Rachel. But, like, he didn't.
Not, suspicious.
Not suspicious at all. Like, we can see you. Like, that's so weird. So, Emily decides, well, she's going to go in. I don't get it. I don't get it. Mm-mm. So Rachel is like working on the handcuffs, so she gets the handcuffs off with the safety pin. She goes down to the basement, she grabs the Polaroids and the gun, but it's not loaded and she doesn't grab any bullets. And as she's coming up to leave, she opens the door and she sees Emily in the way, snooping around. And she's like, okay. So then as Emily like starts heading toward the bathroom, the front door opens and she's like, oh shit, like we're all about to die. So like then Emily and Cecilia are like, what you doing here? And Emily says, oh, I'm going to the bathroom. And Cecilia's like, yeah, I came in because I needed a break. And Rachel's like hiding in the basement like, okay, this is good. This will be good. So it gets quiet again. So she's like, okay, she comes out the basement. No, because Emily is still wandering around, not in the bathroom. And Emily's like, oh, I was looking for the bathroom. You said that 5 minutes ago. And so Rachel's like, over there. And then so Emily starts walking towards the bathroom, but then she comes back and I'm like, girl, we don't have time for what you're doing. She's like, okay, I'm not supposed to be in here. I had too much to drink. Like, will you not tell Aiden I was in here? And Rachel says, I won't, because I'm not supposed to be in here either. And so they go their separate ways, and Rachel grabs the key and she goes to Cecilia's room. And I'm like, oh my God, leave her up there. And she says that Cecilia's like, oh, I didn't know you were here. He told me you were gone. And we have a cute little friend awake, if you can hear that. So Aiden had told Cecilia that Rachel was gone, and Rachel just goes, don't scream. And so Cecilia like looks afraid, obviously. She says, we're going for a ride and you won't make a sound or a scream. And she's like disgusted with herself that she has to sound like Aiden, but she's like, I gotta get her to go. And she just hopes like one day like Cecilia knows that all of this was to protect her. So she, like, goes, and she's, like, you know, moving kind of fast. And Cecilia's crying, and she tells her, like, we're going to the truck. I need you to be brave, and I trust you. So we go back to Emily. Now she is, like, looking around the bathroom, and when she comes out, Rachel's gone. And she saw her come from the basement, so she's like, okay, well, let me go down there. And she's like, it smells like him. It's a basement.
Right. It smells dark and dank.
And dank, yeah. And so she sees all these boxes, and she hears the sound, and she turns around, and it's him. I would be petrified.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't know he was a serial killer. Like, I would be petrified. And she goes, oh, I was looking for the bathroom. He's, like, in the basement. But then he, like, laughs. So, like, they have a little moment. But he seems off. And he keeps, like, looking, like, at her and then at the boxes behind her. So she's, like, she literally says, like, I'm nosy and I can't help it. So I turn around and he grabs her. And he looks, like, panicked and afraid. And she's like, this is hurting me. And she looks at him and, like, his face is different. And she's like, I don't know this man. And I said, duh! No, you don't. So she's like, I just want to reassure him. And so then he relaxes and he apologizes. And she's like, oh, it's fine. And he asks her to, like, come over and look at something he's been working on. But then all of a sudden they hear a thud and then an engine. And they know it's his car because everyone else had to park further away. So he turns and he runs right out of there. And she runs after him. So Rachel and Cecilia are moving. She doesn't see him, which I think it's so weird. Like, no one thought it was weird that you two came out the house and got in the truck. I'm trying to, like, visualize. Maybe it's parked in the back. I don't know. Like, yeah. But she gets in the truck, and the gun is empty, but Cecilia doesn't know that. So she's, like, kind of using it to, like, guide her. But she's just like, I gotta focus, because obviously she hasn't driven in 5 years. And also she's like, I really didn't drive before. She lived in the city, so she didn't drive. Over with Emily, Aiden is, like, panicked. He's looking around everywhere. He runs upstairs. He's opening all the doors. He's like, Cece's not here. She's got my kid. And he's like, I need a car. And so she gives him her keys. Rachel is driving. Cecilia's crying. And all of a sudden she sees a car behind them. And it is like, it's not turning or anything. So she knows, like, this is them. And she's like, I just got to get to the town center. She's got to get there. So she loses him, but she's not the best driver. And, like, a bird flies in front of them. So she swerves, loses control of the truck, and they crash.
I'm like, I'm getting away. I'm not swerving for
nothing. I'm just going to hit it. So Emily, her car actually stopped. Like, her engine's messed up or something. So, like, when he was trying to, like, go fast and catch up with the truck, it couldn't handle it, and it, like, cut off. So he screams, and he's like, I should have killed that bitch a long time ago. And she's kind of like, maybe he just said that in the spur of the moment.
And I just want to say, he was just choking you, and, like,
yes.
he
is creepy.
And you get in the car with him?
Yeah, no. So he jumped out, takes off running, and she, like, feels, like, super sick, and she's like, I wonder if he really, like, meant it like that. So Rachel is like, we have to go. She gets out, her neck hurts, but she's like, we gotta go. So she grabs Cecilia, they're running, he's, like, gaining on them, and she regrets now, like, not grabbing the bullets. But he starts closing in, and she feels like Cecilia is deciding to run with her versus going with her dad. Back with Emily, she is able to get the car started, and she catches up to them. And she sees him catch up to Cecilia and Rachel. And he grabs Cecilia, but she's like, okay, thinking he's going to, like, hold his daughter because he's distraught that this lady took her. No, he grabs her and, like, leaves her and keeps chasing after Rachel, which upsets Emily. In the middle of all of this, you're just thinking about yourself. She goes, hey, Aiden, stop. No, come back. So he turns around and looks at her, and then he just goes right back to chasing Rachel. And she's upset. Because why are you chasing her and not me? Okay. So Rachel is thinking, like, she used to be a runner. She just has to outrun him. And she does. She makes it to the police station. She had, like, tossed the gun. She goes inside. And at this point in time, she gets in there. He's there. Cecilia's there. So they're all there. And he's literally trying to, like, bust through the cops to get to her. And the cops arrest him. But they also arrest Rachel. And they take them both to question and, like, leave Cecilia. And Rachel's thinking, like, the cop was, like, he's basically like, I'm sorry, Aiden. Like, so she's already, like, great. Like, you know, because he's the town hero or whatever. Like, everybody likes him. So they ask her what happened and who are you? And this was pissing me off so bad because spit it out. Like, she was struggling so hard. She's like, I want to say it perfect. If you don't just start
just
freaking
run in
talk.
There, start screaming your name. This is... And
oh
Aiden
my God,
kidnapped me.
This was a whole chapter that didn't need to be here. Just say it. So finally, she's like, officer, my name is May Mitchell. So that is Rachel's real name, is May. So we go back to Emily, and it has been a couple of days. It's been 10 days. So she sees him everywhere she goes, at the park, wherever. His mugshot's in the paper. Like, a lot of old pictures of him are in the paper, and it's been 10 days. And no one wanted to believe it at first, but he basically partially confessed. And she's been questioned. The FBI has come in. She feels like she betrayed him by telling them everything about their relationship, which you really didn't have a relationship.
Right.
Like, there wasn't much to tell, but whatever. And they end up searching his house, and they had found some of her items, and she's like, the lady was like, do you want to know what they were? And she's like, no. And so the agent is kind of confused because basically, like, she's like, everyone in this town's like, he's so beloved and a good guy. And she's like, I don't think that would be the same, like, if it was a woman. And basically, like, kind of like, did you, like, had no inkling, like, of what he was? And Emily's kind of, like, mad because, like, she'll never understand, like, she's mad at the agent. Like, he's like, well, you'll never understand why he was loved. Like, she's so confused. Like, she's almost upset that he got caught. Like, not the fact that he did this stuff.
Right.
And she basically kind of goes into hiding for a couple of days. And finally her roommate comes in and was like, hey, like, what's going on? But her roommate tells her, like, I feel like I don't really know you. And so she does decide to tell them everything. And they ask, like, what are you going to do with the restaurant? And she doesn't know. So she decides to go back to work. But obviously she's waitressing. Everybody's, like, looking at her. They're trying to sit at the bar to, like, get closer to her, I guess. And she just, like, feels super sick. And she decides that this is her last night at the restaurant. And she's going to sell the restaurant. She sells it to the first guy that gives her an offer. She doesn't know if it's a good offer or not, whatever. She gets this crappy job offer to be a bartender with low pay in the city. And she, like, gets an apartment in Harlem. And she just wants to disappear. But before she leaves, one of her friends finds the address of Rachel/May. It's basically her parents' address. And the crazy thing is that the whole time, they were, like, super nearby. It's, like, the next town over. Mm-hmm. So this whole time, her parents were just, like, right there. So she goes up to the house, and she, like, knocks on the door, and Rachel/May, her mom opens the door. And Rachel comes up, and she tells her, like, hey, I'm leaving town. I'm so sorry. And Rachel says, I'm just calling her Rachel because that's what we've been calling her the whole time. She says, like, you didn't know. And Emily just thinks about the last time she saw her, like, and how crazy it was. And she feels guilty. Like, basically she feels bad, like, that she wasn't the one that, like, got kidnapped. And she's like, can I hug you? And Rachel/May, her mom, like, starts to say, like, no. But May says, it's fine. And then we get the last chapter, which is May. And basically she's been, like, super overwhelmed, like, coming back to her life, like, her parents, her brother, even her almost boyfriend, Matt, emailed her and was like, I hope you're okay. Like, Julie, all these people. Literally at night, she lays in her bed and she's, like, listening for the sounds in the hallway like she used to. She worries about Cecilia. Cecilia is with her grandparents and she was able to keep her dog. And so when Emily comes, like, she just looks at Emily, and it's almost, like, comforting because Emily is actually one of the most familiar things in her life right now, because everyone else is strange to her. And so even though she doesn't like to be touched, she does hug Emily, and that is the end.
The end.
So, what did you rate it?
Good question. I think... I rated it 4 stars.
Okay. I would give it a 3.5. Thoughts? What are your thoughts?
I enjoyed it. There were definitely some moments, which, I've never been kidnapped, and, so...
I know, I can't say a lot. I mean, I have not experienced that.
But there were a lot of moments where I was frustrated and it was just like, dude, seriously, like, and was, like, the ending, I felt like was just a little too perfectly wrapped up.
Yeah, and it was quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But overall, I enjoyed it.
I want to know, like, what did he say? Like, why did you... Like, I love the mind of a serial killer, so I'm like... I have so many questions. Like, why did you do it? What happened to your wife? Like, did he kill her? Like, I'm assuming he was planning on killing Emily, but, like, it almost, I don't know, like, maybe he would have entertained a relationship, because this is the first time that he's able to actually have one. Like, I don't know. And then, like, is Cecilia not his daughter?
Right.
Like, I don't know.
Or was that just, like, a plot hole?
Yeah, like, a weird thing that was dropped in there. Like, that was random.
Right, because, like, why bring it up if it's...
Yeah, like, yeah, why did you? I was so frustrated. Like, why? Like, I know. And I've never been kidnapped, thankfully. I'm thankful for that. But, I don't know. Like, would I be able to leave her? I don't know. Because I'm just like, that's not my problem. Like, I gotta get out of here.
Right.
But, I mean, I get it. Like, she was a kid. And then...
And you didn't really know her either.
Yeah, like you didn't know her. And I wonder if, like, the author's trying to get at, like, is this, like, genetic? Like, is that why he does it? Because it's, like, basically, like, the whole thing is, like, I guess to explain why he did it was having Cecilia have all these, like, anger issues that she struggles with. But, yeah, like, overall, it was a decent read. Just, Emily. You're crazy.
I hated Emily.
Even at the end, like, I hated that. Like, don't come to me. I mean, in some way, Emily kind of is a victim. She kind of is. But, like, don't come to me, like, a very serious victim, almost, like, seeking comfort from me. I don't like that. Like,
you were so infatuated with my kidnapper that you stalked him.
Yeah. Like, you're on the verge of the kidnapper.
Right.
Like, yeah, and then, like, you're upset when he was chasing me. Like, because he's not with you. And, like, even at some point, she's like, I would follow him anywhere. Like, he's about to kill you.
Right.
He's about to kill you. And, like, yeah, like, just don't come for me to comfort it. I'm not, like, I don't know, like, I'm not the one to comfort you. Like, I'm not here to make you feel better.
I mean, you have the trauma of realizing that the guy that you've been crushing on since you were a child is a kidnapper and serial killer, but... You know, I've been going through this abuse for 5 years.
Mentally, physically, emotionally, like, everything. I'm so messed up. Yeah, so, yeah, I don't know. Do we have reviews?
Yes. So, let's see. For our 1-star. So, Aiden is a serial killer, and this book follows his story through the perspective of his current captive, his girlfriend Emily, and daughter Cecilia. This is a psychological thriller, but you know what else it is? Boring. I don't like second-person perspectives, so all of the Rachel's chapters were getting on my last nerve. I don't like none of these characters, and this book was not thrilling. I don't even know how it's supposed to be a thriller, because nothing happens.
My mom said, she was like, yeah, she was kind of bored too. That's what my mom said.
And then these 5 stars have more to say. Okay. 5 stars. I love this. I was hooked straight away, and the book didn't let go. The premise of people who are kept hostage for years has fascinated me for a long time, and this book executed it wonderfully. The 3 perspectives held my interest throughout, and I think this worked much better than a single point of view would have. A brilliant read.
Okay.
And I do want to throw in a little tidbit that I read about this book and the author. So the author is French, and French is her native language, but she wanted a goal that she had for herself is she wanted to write a book in English. So her first book she wrote
was this one?
Was this in English?
Oh, I think that was, I mean, yeah, that was fine. Well, kudos to her. Our next book is Reckless by Lauren Roberts. So we are doing the sequel to Powerless. I'm excited. I haven't read it yet. You've read it already, haven't you?
Reckless?
Yeah.
Nope,
Oh.
I have not.
Well, I'm excited. It's not super long because I think they're like
it's shorter than Powerless.
Yeah, so I'll probably fly through that. So I'm excited. Ready to be back with Kai. So that is super exciting. Also, keep following us on all the socials, but we are trying to get our whole thing with the 500 was to try to get to 1,000 so that we can go live on TikTok so we can talk to you guys. So we very much appreciate all of our followers, and we want to keep doing things for you guys, but that definitely helps us. We hope you are enjoying the podcast so that you want to like, rate, review, all of those things. Anything else? I don't think there's anything else. No other announcements?
I don't think so.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.